When you're setting the trigger on an action, there are two general purpose options. The trigger after workflow started will run relative to when the workflow is applied to the project. This works the same way whether the workflow is applied to the project manually or from a lead capture form. If you want an action to happen immediately after the workflow has started, set the number of days, weeks, or hours on this trigger to 0. If you want an action to happen 30 days after a lead reached out, set the number of days on this trigger to 30 and be sure to apply this workflow in a project on the same day that they reach out. The trigger after all previous actions complete will run relative to when all the preceding actions in the same workflow are completed. That includes both previous actions and previous to-dos. The smaller checkbox on a task must be completed as well. This is a great trigger to use when the timing of one action is dependent on the action above it being completed. When you have several actions in a row that all use this trigger, it creates a staggered effect where one action happens after another. You could also use this same trigger to run multiple actions back to back. Technically, they will still fire one after another instead of simultaneously, so there could be a slight delay between actions. This common trigger is sometimes overused. While it is great for general purpose, there are so many other triggers available that can offer more precision in your automated experience. The more accurate your trigger is, the more sophisticated your workflow will be. Tip number 1. After all previous actions complete can also be used on the very first step in a workflow. It doesn't require that there's an action above it. Tip number 2. You can use decimals in a relative trigger. If you want something to be delayed by 15 minutes, set the number of hours to 0.25.